Howdy Doomtown fans, Willing Dunn here. I'm back for the latest Saddlebag expansion for Doomtown. This is Nightmare at Noon. As is the custom, we're going to be looking at the dudes in this first part, and in part 2 we'll be looking at all of the non-dude cards that are in the pack. We're going to start off with a new 4th ring dude. This is called Junior. He's an ace of spades, 5 to play with no upkeep. He's 3 draw, 0 influence. He's an abomination. Junior cannot be aced by card abilities. Then he has React. When Junior enters play during high noon, you may search your deck and discard pile for a non-gadget mystical goods and either ace it or attach it to one of your dudes in this location, paying the cost. As I see it, this guy is mainly this react ability, but then he also has a bunch of cool synergies with things that 4th Ring's already doing. So he's an abomination. That's going to mean that he's going to interact well with oddities of nature, or like raising hell, or any of the things that are based around abomination. He's got a low value, but this can't be aced by card ability things is really going to protect him from some of the scarier value-oriented abilities like Shotgun or Soul Blast. So this react ability seems pretty interesting. It does seem like a huge limitation that you can't get gadgets. There's quite a few good mystical gadgets, and I don't know if you are exactly going to do that in 4th Ring, but that certainly puts a damper on his ability. Now that said, there are still quite a few good mystical goods that we can go get with this thing. Stone Idol and Mayfair Family deck both would help with your spell casting. I don't know about Mayfair Family decks so much, but Stone Idol seems like it has some really good synergy with Paralysis Mark and Soul Blast of your own. There's also Legendary Holster. I'm not sure I've ever seen a 4th Ring deck use that card, but it is worth noting this dude already has 3 bullets. So if you could put a Legendary Holster on him, it's going to be pretty easy to meet the pull requirement. There's also both Evanor and Lakema. I don't really see either one of these seeing play with this card, but it's a possibility. It's worth noting that later in this pack, we're going to look at 2 other mystical goods cards, and I think one of them has some pretty serious potential with this guy. So we'll talk about this react ability a little later. We might draw some comparisons to Richard Slavin with this guy. He has very different stats versus Richard Slavin, but this is the second of these mystical goods-oriented 4th Ring abilities that we're getting. So in the future, if there's more powerful mystical goods that we want to have maybe 1 or 2 copies of and we want to find them at the right time, I could see using both Richard Slavin and Junior in that deck just to be able to reliably get that key mystical good in play. Next up is another 4th Ring dude. This is the fabulous Mr. Miss. 6 of spades, 2 draw, 1 influence, 4 to play with 1 upkeep. Whenever a dude refuses a call out from Mr. Miss, that dude gets -3 influence until after sundown. I'm a little underwhelmed with this card. On one hand, the stats aren't too bad. The 1 upkeep's really the only thing holding this dude back. This ability to give a dude -3 influence certainly could be powerful in the right context. It just to me seems like that context is going to be pretty difficult to pull off. First of all, the dude that you're going to hit with this negative influence effect needs to have enough influence for it to matter. Now, you're also going to have to engineer a situation where the dude refuses a call out, and the call out has to be from this dude, not just some other dude. That seems pretty hard to do. I don't know how many situations you're going to get into with a non-huckster, non-abomination dude in 4th Ring that they're not going to just be able to accept the call out. I could see maybe the situation where you have like a Shadow Walk on a different guy ready to go with some powerful ability that you're going to just Shadow Walk in and hit him like Soul Blast. Then you call out with this dude, they can't really accept because as soon as you get to make a shootout play, you're going to ace their dude. That's something that could happen, but it just doesn't seem like it's going to come up all the time. It requires a lot of setup, and it seems to me like within 4th ring, you already have quite a few good influence nerfers, like both Blood Curse and most of them play Rumors, or at least the decks I play Rumors. So I think in general, I'm not sure why you'd want to use this dude. It's kind of nice to get another dude like this in the lineup. The 6 fits with some of the things that we want to do anyway. But in general, I don't know if this is going to be good enough to really justify including it in your deck. Next up, we have a Law Dogs dude. This is Sister Mary Gideon. She's a 9 of spades, 6 to play with no upkeep. She's 0 stud with 1 influence. Blessed 1. While Mary is the only dude in your posse, she gets +1 bullets for each dude in the opposing posse. Here's yet another no upkeep blessed dude for Law Dogs. We definitely have a lot of those now, and it's cool that we have such a variety. Now she has some things going for us that the others do not. She's a stud, and she's got this powerful trait that if she's alone in a posse, she's going to get a bunch of bullets. I could see her trait working out pretty well with the miracles that reduce the amount of casualties you have to take, like either Holy Roller or Shield of Faith. Both of those seem like they would help justify getting into a fight with just one dude a little bit better, because you'd have some ways to negate casualties if you get into trouble. Realistically though, how many bullets is this trait gonna give her? Like 2 or 3 maybe? I don't really see her taking on like an entire team of dudes, right? Like 6 or 7 dudes. Not gonna happen. That said, I think she's still gonna be a pretty good option as either a starting dude or just a dude you play in your deck with this blessed Law Dogs. I could definitely see 9 being on value since we've seen so many good 9 cards lately, and I think just in general 9 is a pretty viable option for basically any deck. I could also see starting her because of the no upkeep thing. 6 is kind of expensive, but she's probably going to be taking the place of some other stud dude that you would be starting, like Tommy or something like that. I could definitely see her fitting in there. This is a nice addition to the Blessed Law Dogs. Got some versatility, not overwhelmingly strong, but just another nice dude padding out that strategy. Next up, we have a Morgan Cattle Company dude. This is Nathan Shane. He's 7 of spades, 4 to play, 1 upkeep. He's 1 stud and 1 influence. He has Shootout Boot. Look at a number of random cards in an opponent's hand equal to his bullet value. You may discard 1 action card you saw. This dude's definitely going to see some play. I really like this guy. I think he works really well with the 2 main builds of Morgan Cattle Company that I'm aware of, which are the landslide style, like the control-oriented build, as well as the gadget-oriented, more aggressive build. I like this in the control-oriented build because it's so easy to win low ball. So you're going to pretty routinely be able to fire this off and hopefully get one of their action cards. Especially once they've engineered a shootout, it's pretty likely that they're not going to have a full hand. Usually they're going to be playing some of their cards down, using some of their card filtering or draw effects before they get into a big shootout. So a lot of times the cards that they have left are going to be largely these shootout effects that they're going to use against you. So I think even if you're just pulling 1 card, you're going to have a pretty good shot of getting something that matters. Now I think this is even better for the gadget deck, because one of the things that's really obnoxious about playing with gadgets is that a lot of times your best dude just gets punked with like Pistol Whip or something. This is going to potentially be a way to help against that. Even if you're not getting a ton of value out of this shootout ability, he does have some good stats and just generally fits a role that Morgan is a little weak at, which is kind of these moderate cost dudes that have a stud bullet and have an influence. We don't really have a lot of those in Morgan Cattle Company, so it's kind of nice to get a dude there, especially one with a value that's going to prevent him from just getting totally annihilated by the low value effects. Next up, we have the business partner of the guy we just looked at. That's Warren Graves, also a Morgan Cattle Company dude. He's a jack of spades, 8 to play with 1 upkeep. He's 2 stud and 2 influence. He has react, win a shootout play, aces, discards, or sends another of your dudes home booted. Send them home booted instead. Warren joins the posse. Lots of really good stuff going on with this guy. I think this guy's really, really strong. He's got 1 upkeep, but then has really, really good stats. Really, the only downside of this guy is that he costs 8 to play. This reactability is also really, really strong. It's worth noting that it isn't just your opponent's shootout plays. So if you make the smart choice on Irving Patterson or whatever, you can send that dude home booted, and then Warren is going to teleport in there and fight to defend Irving's honor. This guy's really sweet. I definitely anticipate playing this guy in Morgan Control. I think he's going to be a lot better than some of the other options we have. Like, I think this is definitely going to replace Remy, just because this guy just seems stronger to me. It doesn't really matter if you're getting 4 stud or whatever, since your draw structure is so bad. So this guy is absolutely going to see some play. I would anticipate him being the kind of rounding out big finisher dude of basically any deck you're going to play him in. This ability is really strong. It's going to help protect against some of the scariest effects in the game, and it's going to get him involved in the fight. That could potentially be a liability, but I think realistically you're only going to play this guy down when you're in a position where you're actually ready to fight. I could maybe see starting this guy since he only has 1 upkeep. It would eat up a lot of your starting Ghost Rock, but he's still going to be 2 influence, so you're not going to be totally screwed on that front. This guy's really good. I think he's definitely going to see some play. He's absolutely going to be worth including at least one of in most Morgan decks. The next dude is for Sloan Gang. This is Jack OHara. He's a 10 of spades, 4 to play with 1 upkeep. He's 1 stud and 1 influence. Jack can have 2 weapons attached. Well, it goes without saying that that trait is super cool. Being able to get 2 guns on a dude, that seems pretty good. And realistically, that's going to do a lot for him. It's going to make him able to get up to a really high bullet count, which matters the most for things like either shotgun or maybe the Ashen Coil gun. Not to mention, it's pretty bonkers with the legendary holster. So if you're already playing a deck that has a lot of weapons in it, this guy seems like an automatic include, at least as a 1 or 2 of. Now, most of the Sloan decks that I've built don't play a lot of weapons, so I don't know how much this guy's going to jump out in Sloan, though I do think that you could probably build a shotgun-oriented type of deck, maybe even a legendary holster-oriented deck that could really make good use of this guy. I'm really anxious to try this guy in Morgan Gadgets. I think that this is definitely going to be worth including in that deck. It's a reasonably high pull, and once you get him in play, you could potentially give him some of the best gadgets. He's going to have a really high bullet count, potentially be able to do some scary stuff. Putting Flamethrower and Ashen Coil gun on a dude seems pretty insane, and this is the only guy that's capable of doing that. This is a great design. I'm anxious to get this guy going, and I think that he's going to be really good in any deck that's already playing a ton of weapons. We're going to finish the pack with 3 neutral dudes. The first one is John Aces Radcliffe. He's a 4 of spades. He's 4 to play with 0 upkeep. He's 3 draw, 0 influence. John cannot attach weapons. After each shootout play, including passing, if you have more cards in your hand than each other player, John becomes a stud. If not, he becomes a draw. I'm a little mixed on this guy. In his best case scenario, he's going to be a 3 stud with no upkeep, a low pull value, and he's still 4 to play. That seems pretty matchable by quite a few other dudes, even neutral dudes in the game. In his best case, he's kind of a Ramiro that doesn't have an influence but is a little cheaper on the cost. Ugh. I don't really like that you can't attach weapons to him. That also seems like a limitation. It's kind of exciting to me that you have this no upkeep guy with a bunch of bullets. You know, if you could attach a gun to him, you might be able to pull off some cool stuff. Since you can't, I'm not so sure. Now, I do really like the way his ability works. I think it's really interesting and it's very dynamic. The idea that you have to have more cards than your opponent, it's going to discourage you to play action shootout plays from your hand or to like settle deeds before the fight or things like that. I don't know, I'm kind of underwhelmed with this guy. I don't think he's insanely good. It's nice to get a 3-bullet guy with no upkeep, but I feel like a lot of the things that this guy's capable of we can replicate with other dudes. Next up is a dude I haven't played for quite a while. That's Steel Archer. He's experienced 1 this time. He's a 5 of spades, 8 to play with 1 upkeep, 0 draw, 2 influence, and he's a huckster 3. He has Noon, unboot a hex at this or an adjacent location. Its abilities may be used in additional time. The original Steel Archer circa base set was definitely the 4th ring huckster of choice for a long time, until we got a bunch of new options for 4th ring, especially dudes that are no upkeep or have a powerful abilities attached to them like Leon. I'm not sure how much this new Steel Archer is going to make it into that starting posse, and with 5 value, it seems like it might be kind of a challenge to play. That said, this dude's really good. Huckster 3's nice, and the fact that he has this awesome Noon ability. That's going to be so nice to be able to reuse one of your hexes. Even just reusing a paralysis mark is going to be really strong, and it really only gets better from there. Reusing Blood Curse could be really insane. You basically reduce their influence by 2. That seems really good. In general, this Noon ability is really, really strong. And Huckster 3 is as good as it gets on Hucksters, except for Smiling Tom. So I think in general, this guy has a lot of good reasons to play him. I just don't know where he's going to fit into your average deck. It seems to me like you would rather just start 2 weaker Hucksters rather than put all of your Ghost Rock into one really good Huckster. You're definitely setting up for getting kidnapped or getting Judge Harry Somersetted really early in the game if you're only playing with one principal Huckster. I don't know. I like this guy. I think he's really, really good. I think that he's definitely powerful enough to justify. I like that he only has 1 upkeep, but I'm a little iffy on where we're going to be able to play this guy currently. The last dude in the pack is named Old Man McDrost. He's a king of spades, 3 to play with 1 upkeep. He's 2 draw and 0 influence. While at an out-of-town deed, he's worth a control point. While he's at a deed, reduce its production by 3. And then he has Noon Boot, choose a dude at this deed. Reduce their influence to 0 until after the next upkeep phase. This guy's a pretty nasty way to take control of your opponent's out-of-town deed, or to defend your own. Now, I think that even if you're not at an out-of-town deed, the ability for him to reduce the production of a deed is pretty sweet, especially since he doesn't have any influence. So you're not going to be able to take control of the deed, you're just going to move there, and then potentially use this Noon Boot ability to shut down their dude that's already there, or vice versa, you could use it to protect your own deed. Either way, this guy's going to be supremely good at controlling a particular deed, and if he's out of town, he's going to get that control point as well. This is all cool stuff, and I like that it also comes with these 2 bullets and the king value making him a little bit more stable and a little more resilient than he could be otherwise. That said, he's probably going to get his butt kicked by a lot of different things. So you're going to kind of want to have him at your own deed because he's not going to be a great fighter. Now, the thing that sucks about that is you lose the production even if he's at your own deed. That's maybe not a big deal since we have a few out-of-town deeds that don't actually have production, so you could potentially mitigate that. But if you're playing against a deck that doesn't have a lot of mobility to get out of town, I could see this guy being pretty mean against your opponent's deeds. That's going to do it for part 1 of my Nightmare at Noon review. Be sure to tune into part 2 where we're going to look at all of the rest of the cards in the pack. Thanks for watching, and if you liked the video, be sure to subscribe and click the button that looks like a thumbs up. I'll see you over in part 2.